Selected by mistake. The celestial sovereignty ship emerged from hyperspace above Earth with little fanfare. Unlike the dramatic first contact scenarios humans had imagined for centuries, this arrival was clinical and bureaucratic. The massive vessel, resembling an iridescent manta ray, positioned itself in geosynchronous orbit and transmitted a simple message to all Earth governments simultaneously. Selection protocol initiating. Dr. Elena Vasquez stared at the notification on her phone and sighed. Another late bill reminder. At 42, she possessed 3 advanced degrees in theoretical physics, but hadn't held an academic position in 5 years. Her revolutionary theories on quantum entanglement had been dismissed as too radical, leaving her to scrape by teaching remedial science at a community college. Today, she was more concerned with her overdue rent than alien visitors. In Detroit, Ray Johnson was elbow-deep in an old Chevy's engine when news of the alien ship scrolled across the small TV in his garage. At 36, Ray had a mind that could instantly visualize mechanical systems and spot flaws that sophisticated diagnostic computers missed. His high school counselors had called him a mechanical prodigy, but a series of bad decisions and worse luck had left him fixing cars in a neighborhood most people avoided after dark. Amir Patel sat in his mother's basement in London, surrounded by homemade electronics. At 25, he'd dropped out of 3 universities, not because the material was difficult, but because it was laughably simple. His room was filled with gadgets of his own design, most half-finished as his attention constantly shifted to new ideas. When the news alert about aliens appeared on his laptop, he barely registered it, too absorbed in his latest creation. In Lagos, Captain Esther Nwosu was being ceremonially discharged from the Nigerian army. At 34, her unconventional tactical approaches had saved countless lives during peacekeeping missions, but her refusal to follow protocols she deemed inefficient had finally ended her military career. As she stood at attention, the ceremony was interrupted by news of the alien arrival. None of these 4 people paid much attention when a purple scanning beam swept over the Earth, emanating from the alien vessel. The sovereignty's advanced metrics sought neural patterns indicating exceptional problem-solving capacity. However, their algorithms contained a fundamental flaw when applied to humans. They prioritized unconventional and divergent thinking patterns over traditional markers of success. 12 hours later, Elena was grading papers when her apartment door burst open. 2 men in black suits stood in the doorway. "Dr. Vasquez, please pack essentials for an extended journey. You've been selected by the celestial sovereignty." She laughed bitterly. "I can't even be selected for a department chair position." "Try again." The agent showed her official documentation. "This is not a joke. Transport leaves in 1 hour." Similar scenes played out across the globe. Ray was pulled from beneath a car. Amir was extracted from his basement laboratory. Esther was approached as she left her discharge ceremony. They met for the first time in a sterile government facility, eyeing each other with confusion. "There must be some mistake," Elena said. "I'm a washed-up physicist." "I fix cars," Ray admitted. "I don't finish anything I start," Amir offered. Esther simply sat with military posture, observing. A screen activated, showing an alien with translucent blue skin and multiple upper limbs. "Greetings, selected humans. I am Diplomatic Envoy Zixwoon of the Celestial Sovereignty. You represent Earth in our Galactic Innovation Initiative. Prepare for immediate departure." "Excuse me," Elena raised her hand. "I think your selection process made a serious error. We're hardly Earth's finest." The alien's expression was unreadable. "Our scanning technology is infallible. The initiative requires cognitive patterns that match specific parameters. Board the transport vessel immediately." Before they could protest further, a transparent tube descended from the ceiling, enveloping them in gentle blue light. Moments later, they found themselves in a crystalline chamber aboard the alien ship, Earth shrinking beneath them through a transparent floor. "That was efficient," Ray muttered, fighting nausea from the sudden transportation. The chamber door dissolved, revealing a corridor bustling with alien life. Entities of all configurations moved with purpose. Floating gas clouds contained in force fields, insectoid creatures skittering along walls, beings that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. A slender, humanoid alien with silver skin approached. "I am Guide Telex. Welcome aboard the Sovereignty vessel Boundless Innovation. You are the first humans ever selected for the initiative." "What exactly is this initiative?" Esther asked, her military training kicking in as she assessed potential threats and escape routes. "The greatest minds of 57 civilizations working to solve the most pressing challenges facing our collective species," Telex explained. "A great honor. And what precisely will we be doing?" Elena pressed. "You will join Project Division 9, addressing a critical energy transmission problem. Your species' unique neural architecture may provide fresh perspectives." Telex led them through corridors of impossible geometry to their quarters, 4 adjoining rooms with amenities approximating human needs, though the beds hovered, and the food synthesizers produced only approximations of Earth cuisine. That evening, they gathered in Elena's room, attempting to process their situation. "Why us?" Ray wondered, examining an alien device he'd already half disassembled. "I barely finished high school." "Perhaps that's it," Elena suggested, eyes brightening with sudden insight. "We don't think conventionally. Our brains work differently." "Different doesn't mean better," Amir countered, fidgeting with components from 3 different alien gadgets he'd somehow acquired. "In military operations, unexpected approaches sometimes succeed where conventional tactics fail," Esther noted. A holographic message appeared. "Project orientation begins in 6 hours. Rest is recommended." The next morning, they were escorted to a vast chamber where dozens of aliens worked at stations surrounding a massive holographic projection. A tall, serpentine alien with scales that shifted colors approached them. "I am Project Director Selvix," it hissed. "Your presence is unexpected. Humans have not established technological credibility within the Sovereignty." The director explained their task. The Sovereignty had developed a revolutionary energy transmission system that could beam power across vast distances. However, when scaled to full capacity, the system destabilized, causing catastrophic feedback loops. 42 species have attempted solutions, Selvix concluded. All have failed. Your species will likely fare no better, but the Sovereignty values diversity of approach. You have access to all research data. For days, the humans struggled to understand the complex physics behind the transmission system. The aliens provided little assistance, clearly expecting them to fail. Most ignored them entirely. Some openly mocked their primitive questions. "The humans still don't understand basic fifth-dimensional particle resonance," one crystalline being commented loudly. "Perhaps we should provide simplistic diagrams." Elena, whose career had been ruined by her willingness to challenge established theories, found familiar patterns in the data others had overlooked. Ray, accustomed to diagnosing complex mechanical problems with limited resources, noticed inefficiencies in the physical transmission array. Amir, whose mind constantly jumped between disparate ideas, made unexpected connections between the energy patterns and Earth technologies. Esther, trained to see strategic weaknesses, identified critical vulnerabilities in the transmission network. 2 weeks into their assignment, a system test was scheduled. The 4 humans watched from an observation platform as the alien scientists activated the transmission array. Holographic displays showed energy flowing through the network, building toward critical mass. "Power levels at 70% and stable," announced an operator. "Proceed to 80%. Director Selvix ordered. As the power increased, Elena nudged Ray. "Look at that oscillation pattern. It's not uniform across all nodes." Ray nodded. "The whole system's vibrating out of sync, like an engine with misaligned pistons. Transmission integrity declining at output nodes 12 through 17, an alien technician reported. "Compensate with standard protocols," Selvix commanded. Amur leaned forward, eyes wide. "They're making it worse. They're trying to force synchronization." 85% call the operator. Feedback loops developing in secondary transmission nodes. Esther pointed to a pattern forming in the holographic display. It's cascading. The system's about to. A blinding flash erupted from the display as alarms blared throughout the chamber. The test had failed catastrophically, just as all previous attempts had. Power Transmission Experiment 27. Failure. Selvix announced. Reset systems for analysis. Later, in their quarters, the humans discussed what they had observed. They're approaching this all wrong, Elena said, sketching equations on a datapad. They're trying to force the system into perfect alignment, but energy doesn't want to flow that way. It's like they're fighting against the current instead of working with it, Ray added. What if, Amir said, pacing excitedly, instead of trying to eliminate the oscillations, we use them? What if the asymmetry is actually necessary? Controlled chaos, Esther nodded. In tactical situations, sometimes introducing a calculated disorder confuses the enemy but benefits your own forces. They worked through the night, developing a radical alternative approach. Rather than forcing the system into perfect symmetry, they designed a transmission network that embraced and utilized the natural oscillations. Their solution was messy, non-linear, and definitely not following standard sovereignty methodology. The next morning, exhausted but determined, they approached Director Selvix with their proposal. The alien scales darkened with skepticism as they explained their unconventional approach. This contradicts all established principles of power transmission, Selvix dismissed. The sovereignty has studied these phenomena for millennia. Yet your system still fails at full capacity, Elena pointed out. Perhaps because you're fighting against the natural behavior of the energy instead of working with it, Ray added. Selvix's scales rippled with irritation. Your primitive understanding is inadequate. The next test will proceed using our established protocols. As they left, a smaller alien with rotating eye stalks approached them. I am Assistant Researcher Clixit. Your approach interests me. It contradicts established theory, yet contains possibilities. Would you help us run a simulation? Elena asked. Clixit hesitated, eye stalks quivering. Unauthorized simulations are discouraged. However, scientific curiosity is a virtue in the sovereignty. With Clixit's help, they accessed a simulation terminal in an unused laboratory. The aliens' sophisticated modeling systems confirmed what the humans suspected. Their chaotic, asymmetrical approach stabilized the energy flow at higher capacities than any previous attempt. Fascinating. Clixit's eye stalks extended fully, unorthodox yet functional. As they refined their model, a priority alert echoed through the ship. All personnel prepare for emergency protocols. Critical power failure detected in ship's main reactor. Human innovation prevails. Alarms blared throughout the massive alien vessel as emergency lights pulsed a deep purple. The humans found themselves pushed aside as sovereignty specialists rushed through corridors toward the ship's core. What's happening? Ray asked Clixit, who was monitoring an information terminal with rapidly rotating eye stalks. The main reactor is experiencing cascade failures similar to the transmission system, the alien explained, appendages moving frantically across control surfaces. If not stabilized, catastrophic containment failure will occur within 8 hours. Would our approach work on the reactor system? Elena asked, studying the schematics appearing on Clixit's screen. The alien hesitated. The principles are analogous, but implementing an untested solution on the main reactor during crisis conditions would never be authorized. But theoretically, it could work. Esther pressed, her crisis management training taking over. Theoretically, yes, Clixit admitted, but Director Selvix would never permit. Then we don't ask permission, Amir interrupted, already downloading reactor schematics to his datapad. We develop the solution and present it when they have no other options. The 4 humans, guided by Clixit, retreated to their quarters and converted Elena's room into an impromptu war room. Ray projected a 3-dimensional model of the reactor, while Elena calculated the necessary modifications to their approach. Amir identified critical integration points in the control systems, and Esther developed a strategic implementation plan that would minimize resistance from the alien command structure. The reactor uses a containment field that's failing under pressure, Elena explained, pointing to fluctuations in the model. They're trying to reinforce it uniformly, but the energy patterns show natural channels forming here, here, and here. Just like in the transmission system, Ray nodded. Instead of fighting those channels, we could reconfigure the containment field to work with them. But we'd need to modify the control systems, Amir added, and they'll never give us access. Esther studied the ship schematics. We don't need their permission. We need a diversion. As the ship's systems continued deteriorating, they refined their plan. 6 hours into the crisis, with reactor stability at critical levels, they approached the command center where Director Selvix was coordinating emergency responses. Director, Elena called out, "We have a potential solution." The serpentine alien scales flashed irritably. "This is not the time for primitive interference. Our best specialists are implementing established crisis protocols, which are failing," Ray pointed out, gesturing to the alarming readings on the command displays. "Your conventional approaches can't solve this," Elena insisted. "The same principles that destabilized your transmission system are causing this reactor failure." "We've developed an alternative approach," Amir added, displaying their model on his datapad. Selvix's scales rippled with dismissal. "Absurd. Your species barely understands basic fusion principles." Esther stepped forward. "With respect, Director, your options are depleting as rapidly as your containment field. In 2 hours, according to your own projections, catastrophic failure becomes inevitable. What do you have to lose by considering an alternative?" A tense silence fell over the command center as other aliens turned to watch the confrontation. Finally, Clixit spoke up from a nearby station. "Director, I have reviewed their proposal. The approach is unconventional, but theoretically sound. Our standard protocols have produced no improvement in reactor stability." Selvix's scales shifted through colors, indicating intense internal conflict. Finally, the alien made a gesture of reluctant acquiescence. "You may present your proposal to Chief Engineer Vorn. But be warned, if this worsens our situation, you will be held responsible for the consequences." Chief Engineer Vorn, a massive entity resembling a jellyfish with metallic tentacles, received their proposal with skeptical oscillations of its translucent body. However, as the reactor's condition continued to deteriorate, and after rigorous simulation testing confirmed the human's approach might work, the alien engineer reluctantly authorized implementation. "This contradicts 8,000 years of established engineering principles," Vorn complained, as its tentacles manipulated the reactor controls. "Yet the simulations indicate a 62% probability of success, significantly higher than our current trajectory." The humans worked alongside the alien engineers, translating their theoretical approach into practical adjustments. Instead of reinforcing the failing containment field uniformly, they reconfigured it to create intentional asymmetries, channels where energy could flow naturally without building up destructive pressure. "It's like creating controlled release valves," Ray explained to a confused alien technician, "instead of building a stronger dam." As the modifications were implemented, the command center fell silent, all eyes on the reactor stability indicators. For a terrifying moment, the reading spiked dangerously, then began to stabilize at a level just above critical. "Containment field holding at 78% integrity," announced a technician. "Pressure decreasing in sections 3 through 7. Unexpected energy flow patterns forming," added another. "But they're stabilizing the overall matrix." Over the next hour, the reactor gradually returned to manageable parameters. What the aliens had been trying to achieve through perfect symmetry and brute force containment, the humans had accomplished by working with the energy's natural tendencies rather than against them. Director Selvix approached the humans, scales shifting through colors that Clixit later told them indicated profound confusion mixed with reluctant respect. Your solution defies conventional understanding, the director admitted. Yet it has prevented a catastrophe that would have destroyed this vessel and everyone aboard. How did you conceive of such an approach? Elena smiled. Humans have always had to work with limited resources and imperfect conditions. We learn to adapt rather than force ideal solutions. Sometimes the strongest systems are those that bend rather than those built to never break, Ray added. We see connections between things that don't seem connected, Amir explained. And we know that sometimes controlled chaos is more effective than rigid order, Esther concluded. In the days that followed, the human status aboard the vessel transformed dramatically. The same aliens who had dismissed them now sought their insights on other systems. The sovereignty scientists and engineers were particularly interested in the cognitive processes that had led to their unconventional solution. 2 weeks after the reactor crisis, they were summoned to a formal audience with the Sovereignty's High Council, a gathering of representatives from the most advanced species in the Alliance. The council chamber was a vast amphitheater filled with beings of countless forms and evolutionary paths. The High Counselor, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate mechanical housing, addressed them directly. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that contradict our assessment of Earth's development level, the counselor stated, its voice resonating through the chamber. The neural adaptability you displayed suggests potential we had not anticipated. Elena stepped forward. The humans you selected aren't considered exceptional by our world standards. I'm an unemployed physicist. Ray fixes vehicles. Amir creates things in his mother's basement. Esther was being discharged from military service when your ship arrived. Murmurs spread through the assembled aliens. Yet you solved a problem that our most distinguished minds could not, the counselor observed. Perhaps because your selection system didn't choose our most distinguished minds, Ray suggested. It chose people who think differently. Your scanning technology identified something valuable in human cognition, Esther added. Not our knowledge, but our adaptability, our comfort with imperfection. The High Counselor conferred with other members before addressing them again. The Sovereignty has reconsidered Earth's status. We propose establishing a permanent exchange program, bringing more humans with these cognitive traits into our innovation initiatives, while sharing appropriate technologies with your world. And what happens to us? Amir asked. You are offered positions as permanent consultants to the Sovereignty, with authority to establish a human innovation division. Your approaches, while unorthodox, have proven valuable. As the humans accepted this offer, they realized they had accomplished something far greater than saving a single ship. They had changed how an advanced galactic civilization perceived humanity, not as primitive beings to be tolerated, but as partners bringing unique and valuable perspectives. 6 months later, the boundless innovation returned to Earth orbit. This time, instead of a single selection beam, it broadcast an open invitation for humans who thought differently. The dreamers, tinkerers, and unconventional minds that had so often been overlooked on their own world. Elena stood at a viewport, watching Earth grow larger as they approached. They came looking for extraordinary minds, she reflected, and instead found ordinary humans who simply think in extraordinary ways. Turns out, Ray smiled, being underestimated might be humanity's greatest advantage. The ship descended toward Earth, no longer seeking to select humans based on alien criteria, but inviting Earth to share the unique perspectives that made humans who they were, adaptable, creative, and unexpectedly essential to the future of a galactic civilization that had only just realized what it had been missing.